Hearthstone matches. I'm pretty excited to see some of these players play. A lot of them, at least a few, haven't been invited in too many tournaments, but in a very top quality players, and we're going to see some throughout the tournament. But specifically, I really am curious to see how the match between Reynad and Stro will end up, as you know, Reynad has the fans on his side, and Stro has the results, let's say. So it's going to be some exciting stuff.
Yeah, it should be really awesome. I mean, definitely some big names as well. We are going to be starting off with Lothar and Savjz. That's the match that we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going through Group A today, guys. Getting the first 3 matches done. Tomorrow we're going to be finishing up Group A. But today you can look forward to Lothar versus Savjz. It's going to be followed up by Reynad and Show. And then we will have the winners match between those two guys. So the format is going to be basically group brackets. So it's the same thing at BlizzCon. The groups are going to be played through in a small bracket format, and then the top 2 players from each of the groups, Group A and Group B, are then going to move on to play off in the semifinals, finals, etc., etc.
I do want to mention that there's a leper gnome in Lothar's druid deck.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarre.
That is, I've never seen one.
Yeah,
this might be like too new of a thing for me. I don't play constructed all the time. So maybe it's a thing, but I haven't seen this thing at all, and that's a little bit weird. He's got like the gnome family right there.
Yeah, I know. Man, he's got a couple of loot hoarders. He's got the leper gnome.
Yeah. Well, both players start with Yeti openers, which is a pretty interesting thing. To see which one actually trades for the other's Yeti first. It looks like Savjz is going to initiate here. I do want to mention, as we get through these matches, it's fairly important to know what kind of decks these players are running. And in the last Heroes of Cards 2, a lot of this stuff was fairly the same. And I mean, the match between Lothar and Savjz, which we're seeing now, is a lot of that again. Both players have a Warlock deck, both players have a Hunter, both players have a Druid.
Do you think this is some sort of like Undertaker, like aggro type Druid deck? Because I mean, he has like look at how many death rattles he's playing.
Yeah,
so
it has.
This is like a bizarre deck. I've never seen something like this played for Druid at all by Lothar.
I did want to mention that the differences between Lothar and Savjz lineups is that Lothar is running a Rogue and Savjz is running a Warrior. And typically in that matchup, the Warrior comes out ahead. Not by too much though. The Rogue deck can be very aggressive. And both players have banned each other's Warlock decks. So we will see, if things go about evenly, the Rogue versus Warrior. So I kind of expect this set to go to Savjz, also given his tournament experience. But man, I am all for seeing bizarre stuff. And,
yeah, me too, man. And like Savjz has got to be kind of scratching his head a little bit, I think, at this point with some of these cards that are coming out. But
I think they paint a pretty consistent picture as they get played out. I think if he hasn't seen this deck, he can kind of guess what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's Thalnos. We've seen Thalnos in Druid decks, but there must have been like the spell-heavy ones. But you hover over the card, it has a death rattle effect.
Yeah,
it's consistent with every other card being played except for the Yeti.
Yeah, there's a card that's pretty decent called the Undertaker. It seems to be in a couple decks every now and then.
So this matchup is always going to be about a combo finisher. So you pretty much have to see which player can take the board and which player hits like that 14 life first.
Yeah, and we do see the Savage Roar is already in the hand here that is Lothar. So I mean, it seems like it'll be interesting to see like what kind of deck do you think has the advantage in this matchup? Do you think that the kind of like more like aggro-y type deck from Lothar is gonna have the advantage here, or do you feel like it is lying more in the hands of Savjz, like especially because as we're getting more deep into the game, there's no real advantage that has been gained from these kind of all these early cards that Lothar had in his deck?
Well, the early cards sometimes work, sometimes they just don't work, and this is just an instance where it didn't really help him too much because he had a lot of early game death rattle cards, but he chose to innervate out a Yeti, and Savjz had exactly the same opener. So as the game progresses, these cards become less and less valuable.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it kind of seems like it is starting to go in the favor of Savjz more and more.
It is on that end, but Lothar's
got
two
nice
Druid
Lothar
claws
as well. Yeah.
and he picked up his combo.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
if he can do a little bit of damage here, I mean, this is going to end one way.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to go face here. I mean, I think he's just gonna trade, but yeah. I mean, we'll be able to see what cards Savjz is gonna draw right here, and that obviously is gonna come into play pretty big. He's gonna pick up a Savage Roar, so he's double Savage Roar, Ragnaros as well in there. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, one thing to note is when you put the Druid of the Claw in charge like that, the reason you're doing that to trade specifically is because you're afraid of Black Knight.
Yeah.
If you're looking to trade and you weren't afraid of Black Knight, you just put it in taunt mode. If you want to do damage, you just charge face. So Lothar's playing around some cards. He probably feels pretty comfortable. That is the position in which you would make these kinds of plays. So he doesn't feel desperate. But when this Ragnaros comes down, I think the desperation is going to start to kick in.
Yeah, for sure. Now, do you think dropping the Ragnaros, do you think you clear minion, or do you think you just like, I mean, do you take out the Druid of the Claw and just like hope to kill the lore with your Ragnaros, or what do you think the play is here if you do drop the Rag?
I'm not too opposed to dropping Rag and hitting the 4/2 with the 5/5 because even though it's not a great trade, you already saw Wraths come down. I think you saw at least one Wrath.
Yeah, exactly. So
two.
It's like, you don't really want to take the 5 damage to the face. I mean, what are you gonna do? Swipe it or something? So I mean, it does kind of make it awkward. I feel like that's the play here, though. I mean, he obviously there's some other things he could go for. Yeah, he could, but it seems like Ragnaros is kind of like all it really makes that much sense, unless he wants to innervate out the Cenarius. But
that's what
he's actually thinking about it. Yeah. Okay, so it is gonna be the Cenarius, and he is gonna drop those taunts, and he's actually gonna decide to trade for the 5/5. So
yeah, if you play the Cenarius, you leave the 4/2
on
the board because it has to run into 2 of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
He does actually draw the Wrath.
Yeah. Alrighty, so now, I mean, this is starting to get into a bit of an awkward position for Lothar. Like looking at the situation on the board, at what point do you start to feel a little bit, do you think, like, desperate to start getting through some of these minions?
I think this is actually a pretty decent spot. I think I would Wrath one of them, and even consider charging with the other Druid of the Claw. Oh, he does. He does a similar play because he has Savage Roar. You basically want to push for face damage while leaving sticky creatures on the board. So
yeah, because he still has the full combo in his hand for next turn. So
this is kind of what I was talking about. Like the early game, that kind of stuff is largely irrelevant. It's just like who can get like to that middle point in life and have the combo ready. Now Savjz, he's running Belchers, and I think Druid of the Claw is a versatile enough creature that you'd run that as well. So I don't think Lothar is actually running Belchers with all those weird early game cards.
Yeah, I don't think he could really fit into the deck. I mean, it seems like he has most of the late game cards. So, and
I'd have to say that even though the game has reached this point where Savjz is at half life, I think in general Savjz is still in the better position because he, in my opinion, he's likely to have at least 2 other taunts in his deck, and there's one Druid of the Claw. Yeah. Well, he's got the Savage Roar, he doesn't have the combo though, and you can't really play Ragnaros, here's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does start to get a little bit awkward. I mean, it doesn't seem like he really has any sort of good answer to the Sylvanas, so...
I mean, think you just do a lot of damage with Savage Roar.
Just ignore it. Yeah.
No.
I think you just go charge and just.
I think you put Druid in charge, Savage Roar.
Yeah, because I guess you can do hero power as well. You can put him very low, and you have your second Savage Roar for next turn. That definitely doesn't seem like it makes the best play.
Using the Wild Growth doesn't make too much sense because if you're gonna
what are you trying to draw into?
You can't really draw anything else.
Yeah, it's not like you can play your combo even if you draw it after that. So I definitely agree. It'll be interesting to see what he does. So, if he does decide to go for that, that would be he has 7, 5, so 12, and then he's actually gonna so he's gonna draw, so he's not gonna. No, I guess he can still do that. We'll see what he is gonna go for.
That is a very good draw though, because he can do that exact same play next turn.
Next turn, yeah. So he's actually gonna put him down to 7 HP, and oh god.
Yeah, and now Lothar pretty much has
the combo to clear. Pretty much, right? Seems like it. I mean, what else can you really do here?
Let's see. Yeah, it is the Undertaker special deck there. But comboing to clear
It gives away your win condition, but I mean, what? Like, I mean, you can taunt up.
No,
but
you're still
you're
dead.
still dead. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter because next turn. I mean, can you actually? Can he actually? No, he can't do. You can't do a full clear.
He can do a full clear.
Can he?
But
Wait, so he can do. Well,
yeah,
no, he takes
Sylvanas
the
into
Belcher, then Death
Belcher,
Rattle,
hero power
Hero
into
power,
the
yeah.
1/2, and then
2 into the
Trance.
Cenarius and 1 into
Yeah.
the yeah. Okay.
But then
He dies next turn, but he doesn't know that obviously. So
yeah, you don't hero power, so you'll be at 6, and you're dead to Drew of the LiquidSavjz.
What about trying to do something like? Do you think there's any play where you try to get through with the Treants and then try to throw your Sylvanas into Cenarius and steal something weird like that? I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's anything he can do. I think he's just dead no matter what. Heal doesn't save him. Clear is like the only play, but that doesn't save him either.
No, there's no play. There's Force of Nature, and then hero power into the Belcher. And then the last Force of Nature kills that thing, you suicide in the Cenarius, you take the Charger, and it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's actually, he is going to actually try to steal. So interesting. So he does decide to go for that. So he is going to actually steal the 4/4.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all, of course. And that is going to be game number 1, going over to Savjz here. So I mean, this is kind of the downside about sometimes playing these Undertaker decks. If you don't get the Undertaker early on, it's such a dead draw later on. I mean, imagine if that was a Sledge Belcher that he just threw, like, you know.
It's exactly that. Like, you're putting in that early game, which makes, you know, for some extra damage in a lot of cases, but on the other end, you know, to put in this early game, you have to sacrifice cards, and we just saw Sledge Belcher pretty much take a full combo from Lothar. And Savjz didn't even have a full combo, and he was able to do so much just because of Sledge Belcher essentially controlling the board.
Yeah.
Also to note, Lothar's deck didn't really get off to a great start, but in this type of matchup with Druid versus Druid, Druids have like these anti-aggro cards that, when the typical Druid deck plays against itself, don't really work. Like, you can't really Wrath anything. You can't really use Keeper's Battle Cry to kill any minion by itself, because all the minions are just a little bit bigger. But when you start playing these Death Rattles, you know, Wrath suddenly kills something, the Keeper kills something. So, you know, I think that match was quite heavily favored in Savjz's case to begin with, even though it is quite random on who ends up comboing first.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and obviously it's like Lothar might not have been like, he doesn't necessarily even want to play that in a Druid versus Druid matchup. He might have been hoping for some sort of other matchup, but you know, not having seen that deck a lot myself, you know, what do you think he was looking for when he's bringing that into the tournament? You know, knowing the deck list that Savjz has, what do you think it was that he was actually looking for to fight against?
I would guess that it's actually pretty good against Hunter, because all the little minions kill all the Hunter little minions.
Yeah.
And because you have the combo cards and the taunts, I think you can actually drop the Hunter down before you die, which is, I think, not a favorable matchup in general. I think the typical Druid deck is slightly below 50% against the typical Hunter deck.
All right, so we are going to go to a quick break, guys, and then we're going to be back with game number 2. Stick with us. Hey guys, welcome back. We're here live at Heroes of the Cards number 3. I'm Azale, and I am with Kriparian. We just saw Savjz take game number 1 over Lothar in the
Druid
Druid versus
versus
Druid mirror.
Druid. Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
Lothar's got to choose between his remaining 2 decks. He's got to choose between his own Hunter or his Rogue. Now, I think the Rogue versus the Druid actually is kind of a random matchup. I think if the Druid gets out like a big creature that the Rogue can't handle, it just goes really, really badly. But on the other end, I don't think there's many things that the Druid can do to stop the Rogue's damage if the Rogue draws well. But I think if I were Lothar, I'd probably just run Hunter. I mean, Hunter's got pretty good matchup. And Savjz, I mean, after he drops a Druid, he's got Warrior, which is pretty good against Hunter, but still it's not overwhelmingly good. And then his own Hunter deck. So I think the Hunter is just, not doesn't really counter anything that's left, and you just, pretty much flip coins at this point, at the very least.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's always kind of awkward in these situations. Like, I mean, even though it is a best of 5, if you lose 2 in a row, like it's almost a must win in your second game, like when you're down a game, because to go down 2-0, it's so brutal. Like to have a deck come back and win 3 straight is pretty low chance. So interesting. We're gonna see Savjz. He's gonna hold on to Wild Growth and Yeti. Maybe no. Okay. Yeah. Maybe he was hoping for that dream start once again, but he is gonna mulligan it.
Well, the dream start does belong to Lothar, I believe.
Yeah. Jeez. No kidding.
But actually, to Savjz as well. I mean, that's a turn 1 Yeti.
Yeah, that is.
That's turn 1 Yeti, turn 2 Wild Growth, and that's turn 3 Swipe if you need it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has another Innervate in hand, so depending on what he draws, like, he could theoretically, have like a turn 2 Yeti as well if he wanted, if he does draw it. But yeah, that is gotta be frustrating for Lothar. I mean, he had the turn 1 Yeti last game as well, but 2 games in a row. I mean, that is the dream Druid start, and in matchups like, especially like this, like, I feel like it can just almost straight up win you the game sometimes.
I mean, the hand of Lothar is still really, really good. Like, you drop the Scientist, yeah, you lose your Undertaker, but then you use your bow to finish off the Yeti, and then you get an extra charge, you have a weapon, you have a creature. Savjz has, a really good opening, but right now, he doesn't have any follow-up.
Yeah. He definitely does need to start drawing into it, and Cenarius is not going to be what he's looking for. So, yeah, as he said, he's going to be able to trade pretty easily with that. Oh, he has a Wolf Rider in here. Do you think you care at all about the face damage? Do you think you're gonna hold on to that?
Face damage is important, but at this stage in the opening turns, because the Druid kind of stopped you a little bit with the Yeti, I think it's a bit ambitious to just leave the Yeti on the board.
No. I just meant like whether or not if there was any situation where he might actually just use the Wolf Rider to trade instead, since he did draw that.
I think in general it would be pretty decent, but the idea is, you want your Mad Scientist to die to get that extra charge of the weapon. So if you use the Wolf Rider and then your Mad Scientist dies, it's suddenly wasted.
Yeah, it is gonna get silenced up though. So just gonna continue going face, and a pretty aggressive start. I mean, he's already down at 22 HP, and Savjz is having, although he did have a great start, has a pretty dead hand. I mean, he's gonna be able to swipe this up.
So does Lothar, is the problem.
Yeah.
Lothar also has a pretty dead hand. He's got chargers, but they're not really going to work too much.
No. Interesting that he's playing like Arcane Golem and stuff. What do you think about
that? It's obviously a very aggressive Hunter deck. Wow, actually skipping Hero Power to use the Gnome is very interesting, because you do expect the Druid to not have a second swipe already, and you do expect the Druid to Hero Power both units down. So the Leper Gnome actually being played this turn does get 2 extra damage. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of interesting that he thought about that and made that play so quickly.
Yeah, Arcane Golem to me is like, it's such a hard card to play sometimes, just because it's like, especially against something like a Druid, the Druid is going to have these powerful late game cards. He has Cenarius, it's like giving him the extra mana is kind of scary sometimes. And I mean, he is going to do it, but that's...
Oh, it's next turn Cenarius, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he just gave him the extra mana crystal, so... I mean, that's gonna be pretty brutal.
I think the Leper Gnome just goes face here.
Yeah, I think you may as well. Like, I
think actually not going face might cost you the game.
Yeah. I mean, he has him down to 9 HP. There's 2 damage from the upper gnome, so I mean that's 7. He has hero power kill command, which is an additional 5. If he draws a beast, he could easily have lethal next turn. We'll see if he does do that though.
I think here you actually trade for the Arcane Golem.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Well, he's actually gonna try to keep it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think he should go golem. I mean, because that keeps one of the taunts alive at least.
I just feel if there was a death rattle, it would have been played last turn.
Yeah. Animal companion. Let's see what he gets. Okay,
That's
actually yeah, it is actually good. Normally it's not the one you want, but in this situation it does allow him to take out the 2 taunts, and he does have kill command. Wait.
Yeah, he's one mana off lethal.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think he should have just kill commanded. Because, well, I guess it depends on if he gets another beast, but losing that activation kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was right. He was right not to, because some of these did have the heal.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe he knows the way to play this matchup a little better than us.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
But it is kind of like sometimes a bit awkward when you get into one of those situations, because if he doesn't have the activation for the kill command, then it can start to get a bit tough. But and this damage is really gonna start stacking up from Savjz. I mean, he has to win this turn, like now.
I think he's actually dead to a charger.
Yeah.
Has to draw a charger. A beast is not enough unless it's an animal companion huffer.
Blue Hoarder. That's not gonna do it. That's gonna be game. Doesn't have the damage.
You actually survive? Is there anything you can? Can you play Loot Hoarder, kill command your Loot Hoarder, and draw something that keeps you alive?
I mean, maybe. Let's see. Is there anything? I mean, what would you draw? I don't think there's anything you draw. Like, there's no charge minion or anything that can kill something else. He's gonna try it, Arcane Golem, but it's only 4 damage, so
yeah.
He doesn't have anything that can clear. So that's gonna be 2 games in a row for Savjz, and out to a very fast.
If he drew the Arcane Golem instead, he would have won there.
Yeah, he would have, but it's cards, right? And it's gonna come down to that oftentimes. And I mean, he had a great start, but Savjz did as well. And although Savjz kind of had a bit of a dead hand minion wise for a bit after, I mean, the fact that he had the swipe kind of kept him alive, and then extra mana from the Arcane Golem kind of like bumped him up a turn as well. So I don't know, man. Like, how do you feel about Arcane Golem in decks like this?
I think Arcane Golem is alright. Like, if you're running Wolf Rider, Arcane Golem seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a very direct way that he's playing that deck. So I mean, it's a consistent idea. I don't think it's an off card in that type of deck. In general, Arcane Golem, I think, doesn't really work because most of the face decks still have a relatively high amount of board control. And Arcane Golem really, you have to ignore board control when you play that card, because the mana disadvantage you put yourself in can be so crushing.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty punishing, but that's why generally it's like you want to use it kind of like as more of like a finisher and stuff like that, kind of like replacing the old Leroy and stuff. But in a lot of situations you don't have any other choice, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of like giving your opponent free wild growth. But anyway, Savjz gonna be up 2-0. And we are going to go to another quick break, guys. Then we're going to be back, and we're going to see if Lothar can start to battle back here, or if Savjz is going to take a clean sweep. Welcome back, guys. We're here live. Heroes of the Cards number 3. It is Savjz versus Lothar in our first matchup of the day.
On this
I'm
last
Azil.
deck, and I am
Yep.
Crip. So Rogue versus Druid. This, I feel if both players draw mediocre, the Druid typically wins. But I think it's really just based on who draws combos. Like, they're both combo-reliant classes. And if one player gets it, the other doesn't. It's a landslide.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And I mean, although Lothar does have to win 3 games in a row, it's definitely looking pretty grim. If there was a class that do it, I mean, Rogue has definitely pulled it off a lot of times in tournaments before.
That's true, but I think
It's
Rogue
definitely rough.
is at a disadvantage
Yeah.
against a slight disadvantage though against both Hunter and Warrior. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is a pretty bad spot for Lothar.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's optimistically 3 coin flips in a row that you gotta win.
But they call it Miracle Rogue, man. Just gotta start praying.
Yeah, in general, we've seen a lot of players in terms of their deck lineup specifically for this tournament. They've picked a lot of like safe classes, like classes that are just like pretty good against everything.
Yeah.
And of course, Hunter and Warlock, which are without too much doubt the best tournament classes. As you know, Warlock can play both ways with the Zoo or with the Handlock, both being super powerful top tier decks. And Hunter just being, a class that right now in the current meta is extremely powerful.
So it is going to be more of like a tempo rogue or something. I mean, he has Shade in there, his Violet Teacher in there.
Yeah, Violet Teacher is not too odd of a card. Even double Violet Teacher is not too odd.
The Shade is not something I really see in rogue decks, though.
Yeah, the Shade is a fairly strange card. Now, one thing
Look at the start again, though, from Savjz. He's been getting pretty crazy starts.
Innervating out a Shade pretty much means that on turn 9 you win the game regardless of what's going on. The reality is, Rogue, to deal with stealth garbage like that, you gotta use a Blade Flurry, and by the time you get a big enough weapon and can Blade Flurry it, that thing is probably going to be out of range.
Yeah, you can't kill it anymore. So you think that in most situations he's literally just gonna try to sit it in stealth the whole time and just wait to break for a combo?
Yep. Or if there's like a
really good trade.
high priority target, like
Auctioneer.
Yeah, like if it's a 6/6 and an Auctioneer goes down, it's just visible and you don't have a swipe, then you killed that thing.
Yeah.
Of course, he draws swipe.
Well, man, it's gotta be annoying for Lothar. I have to say, just like fighting, like Druid can have the potential for such incredible starts. Like when you do with Innervate, and like you can just get such powerful minions out, and it really can just dictate the course of the game. And it's like, I mean, can he really afford to just sit his Shade in stealth the whole time now too? I mean, like
he has to. He's pretty much forced. Now, Lothar has a pretty good turn next. I mean, Savjz is basically going to play nothing here. But Lothar's going to have the Deadly Poison SI that can kill the big game. And he's actually going to start putting pressure on Savjz. The Sludge Belcher...
Sludge Belcher is pretty
nice,
kind of
deals with it. Yeah, it's pretty nice. But, I mean, one card, like even Backstab, clears it up alright. So, I don't know, I feel like Lothar is playing these decks that aren't like very well known. Often this is an advantage in tournaments where players are very meticulous about analyzing the decks, counting cards, and all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand,
there's a reason though why certain decks are so well known and so commonly played. Like that's the thing. I mean, it's a balance. It's a delicate balance. I mean, yeah, you can get an advantage from catching someone off guard, but if you catch someone off guard with a shit deck, then it doesn't really matter, does it? And not saying that these are bad or anything like that, but I'm just saying that like there's a reason that the meta is the meta, and there's a reason that decks like Handlock and things like that have like basically the same cards on it every single time.
It's also important to note that players who bring like somewhat unusual decks, it only works mostly in the earlier stages of the tournament, because later on, this stuff is being streamed. Yeah, let's say, you know, you bring some unique decks and you make it to the final. In the final, you know, your opponent most likely has seen every single card in that deck. He knows exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of surprising to me that it's like all three of his decks are, to me at least, a little have like some cards in there that are pretty kind of like oddball and things like that. Whereas like usually if someone does that, it's more like one kind of crazy deck or something like that. Now, do you think that that speaks to the fact that maybe he's feeling like he's like kind of disadvantaged against Savjz? Maybe he's feeling like he you know, really has to focus on getting through Savjz and not worry so much about the rest of the tournament because he feels that Savjz is such a tough opponent. I mean, it's like if you feel like you're at a disadvantage or maybe you feel like you don't have a great chance to win against someone, that's to me when you start doing kind of like the crazy stuff, you know? So do you think it's a situation like that, or is it just more speaking to his playstyle?
I don't know. I think Lothar does change things up a little bit from what I've seen in the past from him. I think it's mostly that. I don't think it's quite at that level yet. I also do want to mention that Savjz certainly thought about swiping that SI7 because he sees that the Sludge Belcher gets dropped pretty easily. But on the other hand, because you have the swipe, you can pretty much kill these creatures now that they're out of stealth. It's just kind of expensive still.
Yeah.
Like what Savjz needs is a Wrath draw right now.
Yeah. I mean, his hand, like, it's nice to have the swipe and everything, but his hand is just full of spells right now. He needs some minions, and like especially when the board's gonna get a little bit more developed here. Violet Teacher is going down, so.
Lothar is actually playing the same game. He's stacking the board, mostly just get that shade out of stealth, because these things just get so out of control. I mean, right now, if you think about it, if Savjz had combo, the rogue is dead. Like, yeah. that shade does 9. Yeah. That's 23 total.
That's so clowny. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, it seems like he just has to swipe the shade. There's not really much of a turn here. Now the question is, do you actually get the shade out of stealth? Do you think you actually start trading here? Like, do you swipe the shade and then you just keep it in stealth? You think you're not worried yet?
You keep it in stealth, I think. I mean, you have the Ancient Allure. Yeah. You have some stuff to work with. What he's thinking about here is, does he want to take 5 damage to get rid of that? Yeah. And I mean, if you take more than 2 hits from that, it's worth it. You take 1 next turn for sure. Will you deal with it the turn after that?
Yeah.
Probably not. You're probably going to want to Ancient Allure. I think swiping that and Hero Powering the Shade is the best play here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems worthwhile to take the damage. Oh, so he's thinking about trading. So he's definitely thinking about it.
I don't think that's a good play at all.
Kind of counting up the damage and stuff. I mean, it would die to like SI plus, but I mean, knowing the hand that he has, knowing the hand that Lothar has, I don't think trading would actually be that bad. But he doesn't know what he has. I mean, there's no Abyss there. There's like, if he has to actually take the damage, so he's gonna do the trade. And I mean, you don't really want to have to hit this with your face. I mean, we're gonna see what he starts drawing. I imagine he's gonna start digging within the auctioneer prep, don't you think? Or do you think do you think he's gonna feel like forced to try to like get something out, get the SI out, and finish this off with a hero power? Because at the same time, it's like taking the 7 damage to the face and using your deadly poison charge is kind of rough. Like, there's not really like a great play, but you kind of have to get rid of it.
Right. I just feel that's the only thing you could do. I think you just do Shade SI.
Yeah, Shade SI and just take the damage. Seems like it is really the only option. And like I mean, you could go auctioneer and get really greedy and like pray for an Abyss or something, but
the reason I don't like this from Savjz, just taking the shade out of stealth, is not because of the outcome. Like, the outcome's actually going to be great,
really good, but because he could have had an Abyss or something.
Yeah, he could have had. Well, he could have had a sap as well. Just a lot of things, really.
Does a deck like this normally play saps though? Like, I wouldn't think that sap would be that common of a card in like kind of like a more mid-rangey rogue like this.
Well, the only unusual card that we've seen is the Shade. I think any rogue deck that you play, you have to run at least 1 sap, though.
Okay.
Yeah, he does go for the SI play. So, I mean, this is a really good payout for Savjz, and it's certainly looking very badly for Lothar. All Savjz has to do is hero power once, and there's probably no taunt in the deck, yeah. So right now you're drawing, you're pretty much sending the message to Lothar, hey, look, I can draw a bunch of cards, I already have the combo, and now he actually does have the combo.
Yep. And I mean, he does have swipe as well, like to do that 1 damage next turn if he wants. I mean, he can swipe the auctioneer, you know.
That's not a good prep card.
No.
That's a good prep card. Okay. Well, there actually is some chance here for Lothar because he drew the Lothar, and I think without a doubt that's getting played next turn.
Next turn, yeah. I mean, really, what are we looking at? Yeah, he's got to swipe the auctioneer, doesn't he? Do you think there's any way? Like, it seems like playing the Sledge Belcher right now is not going to do much. He has to, yeah.
I think you hear a power face, and
do you bother wild growthing? Okay,
not really.
Wild, yeah. But I mean, it's
the only chance you don't combo
and stuff.
The only chance you don't combo is if you get Lothar.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a lot of damage there.
Oh jeez, Cold Blood Abyss, yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's starting to get really bad.
You may choose not to eviscerate. I think you Cold Blood though.
Yeah, I definitely think you should Cold Blood. I mean, you can put him so low.
I think he's thinking about cleafing, but I don't think the cleaf is the right play.
I mean, I guess maybe he's just kind of thinking, you know, when else am I going to use it kind of thing, but the question is really, does he even need it to win? And thinking about it. I mean, I guess just getting an extra body on the board isn't really the worst thing. It's definitely not, you know, bad.
I just think there's a really good chance that if you Cold Blood your guy here, he's gonna hit twice, because if Savjz had Keeper, he would have Keepered last turn instead of Hero Powering after the swipe.
Yeah.
So I think the Cold Blood there was a very high likelihood of 8 additional damage.
Just to point out, it's kind of sad that he didn't Wild Growth last turn, because I mean, he had the 2 Wild Growths. I really feel like that was a bit of an oversight, because had he Wild Growth last turn, he could have played the Druid of the Claw as well in taunt.
Oh wow!
Like, I actually think that's
really really game.
Yeah, wow. So he's gonna be able to take this one.
Yeah, it didn't end up mattering, but had Savjz done the Wild Growth with the Druid of the Claw, actually Savjz would have won unless he did the Cold Blood the turn before.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just to me in that scenario, it was just kind of like one of those things where, like, what do you know, against the rogue, what are you saving the 2 Wild Growths for? I mean, I know, like, generally speaking, in like late situations and stuff like that, you know, like, when it's getting later into the game, you save your Wild Growths just for the draws. But it's like in that, when you already have 2 in your hand, you have the 2 extra mana there. I just feel like, yeah, like, he was probably thinking exactly what you were thinking. You know, there's no way I'm not gonna like play the combo next turn, so why do it? But then Lothar comes down, that kind of screwed things up, and he actually would have been able to play the extra.
Lothar was the savior. I mean, if not for that card, Lothar had basically no chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Savjz drops the game with his Druid. Lothar's up 1. What we saw in the end, there's something, you know, what I would consider correct play these days. It's not exceptionally clever. It's, you don't want to reveal any cards, so he had no reason to play the Cold Bloods, and he had lethal in that last turn without them. So as a result, instead of revealing any Cold Bloods at all, decided to just kill Savjz with Hero Power, which is, you know, it's smart. But at the same time, when you run double Violet Teacher, you're not kidding anybody. There's 2 Cold Bloods in that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You definitely need some spells in there, but at the same time, you know, why show it? There's no reason to. He had exact lethal, so.
Well, Savjz is down to 2 classes, just like Lothar was a short while ago. I believe Savjz has to choose between Warrior and Hunter, both of which are, I think, slightly above 50% against the general rogue. Now,
do you feel like Hunter is though against this still?
Yeah, because like you have the flares still, like, you're not really afraid of those shades particularly. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Well, in any case, we're gonna give him a little while to decide and see what he picks. He's only got to win 1 more game. Lothar's got to win 2. Still a pretty uphill climb for Lothar, but he's still in it. Miracle Rogue can do miracles, and we'll have to see how that ends up. We'll be back in a minute, guys.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back. We are going to be going shortly into game number 4 here. Lothar just took that game with his rogue deck against Savjz's druid, and he's going to have to do it 2 more times in a row if he wants to be able to take this series.
What do you think Savjz should go with here? Would you go with Warrior or Hunter against this rogue deck? I think I'd actually go with Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hunter. I think Hunter is a pretty good choice for sure. I mean, do you think that it really even matters which way you go though at this point? Like,
I think no,
yeah.
but
Do you think that there's any like thought process here where you're just thinking like, okay, I have a pretty good chance to win. Which like, is there any world in which he's just like, okay, which deck do I want to show least to my next opponent? You know, do you think he's thinking ahead at all, or do you think it's just like focusing on this series still?
One of the warrior there's a set. One of the warrior win conditions is you just gain too much armor. And when that shade is involved, if you don't draw that brawl, that's no longer a win condition. So I feel like this type of rogue deck is slightly better against the general warrior deck, as opposed to Hunter not really caring because of flare.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Yeah, specifically, it's kind of funny how the one card though, you know, can actually like change your kind of opinion on it that much. And I mean, shade definitely can be huge, but without it in his opening hand, do you think it's really that big of an issue? Like, you know, if he's drawing it more like around like turn 5, turn 6, it seems like it's much less of something. It's something that has to kind of come into that thought process.
Yeah, it's true. But these matches can be quite drawn out, depending on how much the rogue decides to invest into the board. I mean, the rogue can pretty much handle everything in the warrior deck, except for like, you know, the third legendary played, for instance.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and especially if he does get a good start. But I mean, the hand right now for Savjz looks so nice. I mean, he has turn 2 Armor Smith. He can play Acolyte if he wants next turn. Then he could get out like, you know, I mean, he has a minion for every turn. Like, Acolyte, Senjin, Sludge Belcher. It's a pretty beautiful hand.
The Owl actually hits a lot of targets in this deck.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Shade, it's nice. Van Cleef, it's nice. Like, it has a lot of use.
Oh, Vile Teacher, the Azure Drake, the Auctioneer, basically everything except the SI.
Yeah. I mean, it's like obviously not like ideal to silence like an Azure Drake though. Like, but yeah, of course, you know, you can use it on really whatever.
So here you can clear the board with Viscerate Backstab, but I don't think you would.
Do you think he's just gonna like do the backstab with spell power just to make sure he doesn't get more than one draw? I mean, it's like,
well, that's what you would do. It would be.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, just do that, like not
it would be
do
Thalmos,
the
Eviscerate,
well.
then backstab on the Acolyte.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, like, you know, I don't think he should be eviscing the Armor Smith. I'm just saying, like, do you think he should still do that regardless? Like, just do the backstab play, just because it's like it seems like a pretty big concern to let him get very many draws from this.
I think you do the Eviscerate play.
You do the Eviscerate play? You think you should? Okay.
Yeah, because like if you
just can't let him build up that much
you
armor.
lose your one guy, and he gains another armor at the very least. So it's like two damage. All you really have to do is attack twice with that guy, or cast one spell and attack once. So I mean, I feel that's pretty reasonable, especially with a Fan of Knives in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, right now you can fan for 3. You can do Azure Drake prep fan.
Yeah. Yeah, true. That would be pretty strong. Now, with the spell power down at all, like, do you think that, you know, playing this engine, you're, like, at all a bit more worried? So yeah, I guess he's not actually gonna play it.
Well, this engine would actually die to the fan.
Yeah, exactly. So this is definitely the better play. It denies the card draw, you know, takes away the spell power.
Yep.
But Azure Drake, obviously, a pretty nice card to have here. Actually thinking about just playing the Violet Teacher. Interesting. I think, yeah, okay. This is going to be the Drake. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think both options are fine. The Violet Teacher...
Seems like, though, it just like fits the curve a lot better to play the Drake this turn. Then next turn, if you want to play Teacher, you can play Teacher plus Hero Power, Teacher plus Abyss, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but the Teacher survives a Death Spite hit where the Drake does not. And we saw exactly that go down. So that's kind of the thought process, I think. I mean, you're probably going to play a lot of spells anyway.
Yeah.
Vile Teacher Conceal, I think, is pretty weak here. Yeah.
Gonna start to draw, so yeah.
I think you just weapon up and hit one face.
I don't think. Yeah, there's not really anything else to do. The hand though just seems so good from Savjz. Like
it really is. I mean, you have that Deathspite Gromash combo. You even have the coin to pull it out a turn earlier.
Yeah, and I mean Lothar as well is like a card that can be very nice against rogues. Like he pretty much has everything. I mean, he has two good taunters. He has kind of like his win condition with the Gromash Deathspite, like you said. He's a lot going on.
I actually think he's gonna drop the Sludge Belcher or the Senjin and pass. I don't think he's gonna attack with his weapon.
Yeah, makes sense. Just set up. Okay, he's actually okay. No, he's actually gonna Taskmaster it.
Yep. Oh, that was a pretty good draw.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is exactly right. He's basically setting up for a turn 7 enraged Gromash play, and that puts the rogue so low on life that the options suddenly are extremely limited. And I think because of that, Savjz is going to have a pretty easy time taking this game. I mean, what Lothar needs right now is... I mean, he needed it this turn, is the thing. Like, he needed an Auctioneer this turn to kind of, like, prevent basically dying next turn. Because instead, we'll see, like, a Lothar drop.
Yeah. I mean, it does start to get, like, when you start having to spend, like, all your spells and stuff just, like, clearing, you know, as a rogue, that's when it starts to get pretty brutal, I think.
Well, the Vile Teacher is, like, a pretty dead card right now as well.
Yeah. Vile Teacher, Abyss, Hero Power, I guess, into this engine. I guess that's the play.
I think you have to conceal your Vile Teacher. It's just Deathspite does too good of a job dealing with it.
Hmm.
Basically like a swipe with a 5 damage front load. So.
Yeah. Deathspite's not a bad card, man. Okay.
But I think from Savjz, it's time to go face.
Yeah, you think you just coin Gromash, go face, Deathspite? Oh no, he's not going to. Oh.
I think he's thinking about it, but it looks like he likes just going face here.
Okay. Well, and I mean, he can just... it's not like he has to do this anyway, so... Okay, so he's gonna just go Lothar. I mean, he has the Execute in hand as well if he wants to deal with the Vile Teacher that way next turn. But this is like, there's just nothing going on right now for Lothar, and that is, I mean, his whole hand is spells, and there's a Lothar on the board. Like, what is your turn right now? Your turn is Hero Power. Your turn is a Hero Power.
I think your turn might be Cold Blood.
Yeah, you think you Cold Blood and trade?
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty gross.
You can't sap.
No, it's not.
Apparently you can.
You can sap. Okay.
My bad.
But
I wasn't aware of that sap potential.
I mean, doesn't it seem like when your whole hand is spells, like allowing him to just kind of like replay the Lothar, isn't that kind of rough?
Yeah, that is pretty rough.
Seems pretty rough to me, man. It's like now he can't do anything next turn either, because Lothar's probably gonna be replayed, right? Like, I mean, it seems like he could just execute Lothar Hero Power.
Yeah, you just no, you don't Lothar. I think you just use your axe and shield block, and you just set up for lethal next turn with Gromash. Like rogues don't have taunts, they don't have oozes, so I think it's a very simple play. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Makes less sense.
Like there's nothing, this game is like done. The rogue has to kill you here to win.
Yeah, I think the game is done, man. Like this is nothing, and it just draws another spell. What's he gonna do? It doesn't have anything.
Well, he can Cold Blood that 1/1 twice before it dies to the death rattle of the weapon.
Yeah. And then you can just sap it back into his hand and concede.
That five card hand turn 9 play.
Yeah. All right, well, here it is. This is going to be game, guys. Savjz will take the first series of the day. Well played call there by Lothar, as Gromash is going to finish things off. And Savjz is going to be able to take it 3-1, and he will be the one moving on to the upper bracket here. He will be facing the winner of our next matchup after that game.
Yeah, and that was a pretty dominant performance from Savjz. It's also important to know that he didn't have to reveal all of his decks. He pretty much just revealed like 1.5, and I think he revealed two very standard decks. So you know there might be some surprises left that he's hiding, and in this early stage of the tournament, this stuff is very important. You have to consider that if you win your first and second round, I think you automatically qualify. So you
Yep.
know this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
next
definitely is.
match that we're going to see is going to be the Reynad versus Joe match, which I was hyping up a little bit at the start. I'm pretty eager to see that. And the winner of those two is going to face Savjz right after that. And we will know who will be qualifying out of the group. And then we'll have is there another group match in this group? Yeah, there's the losers
There's gonna
match.
be there's gonna be
Then
but today it's
right,
just the two first ones and then the winners, and then tomorrow we will find out who is
right.
the second player to actually qualify and move on to that semifinal stage. So today we will have our first semifinalist of the tournament, but the people that are left in the lower bracket will have to battle out tomorrow to see who's gonna get eliminated and who's still gonna go on.
All right.
But
Well, for the next match, we're gonna need a little bit of setup time. We're gonna give them about 5-6 minutes to set up. We're gonna get information on their decks, their bans, and we'll relay all the good stuff that we get from that when we come back.